Hello everyone, it's me Jenny and it's time for another movie review and today I'm going to be talking about a film that I watched nearly 2 weeks ago, which was What We Do in the Dark, which is, I believe, a New Zealand independent mockumentary film. I found it very entertaining and very charming. I've heard a lot of buzz about this film. It's one of those films that's made a lot of money in comparison to its original budget due to a lot of word of mouth communication about it from the indie circuit. A lot of the people that I watch who are indie movies and a couple of my friends who are into indie movies have kind of talked about it. There's a reasonable amount of low level hype about this film, and it has made a lot more money than it was originally marketed as possibly getting for an independent film. And my quick review for it is, though I didn't laugh out loud during the course of this film, I did find it entertaining. It did hold my attention. I found it pretty charming and pretty witty, and that rhymes. I really enjoyed it. As I said, I didn't laugh out loud. It wasn't one of those snorting into my tea type films, but I found it entertaining. One of the things it does really, really well is when you're making a mockumentary, one of the key things that you have to kind of play into is the tropes of a documentary and then kind of tinker with them and go over the top. And the thing with a documentary is to take something that's relatively mundane and kind of make something into something that's interesting and informative and a story. And one of the double kind of messages of this film was the concept that, you know, in documentaries I really find it very interesting when they take something that's not a story. Life as a thing is not a linear storytelling for the most part. You can draw in, you know, story-based metaphors into life, but generally life isn't really an actual narrative. So when documentaries make a story about something that's to do with life, which is most documentaries, they have to kind of force a narrative into it. And I love the fact that this film is actually a story, but because it's in the form of a documentary, a mockumentary, it feels like the story's been kind of forced, even though it's a written story. And I found that really, it's so hard to explain, but it was one of my favourite kind of in-jokes on this. Going up along the same sort of tropes, the way they handle the mockumentary aspects is really well done. The handheld camera, the intersetting interviews, the visual effects in this are so well done because I wouldn't say they're seamless, but they're subtle enough that you're kind of they're real to life in a weird way. The way that they handle the discussion of supernatural things, given that the story about a bunch of vampires living together in a town full of vampires and werewolves, the way that they deal with superpowers and the way that they deal with killing people, it's so mundane and so placé and so just boring. And it's got people who are kind of pretending to be the way that the actors play awkward in front of a camera and kind of fumble with what they're saying and can't quite communicate properly, and when you meet someone kind of drunk on the street and you interview them, it's someone who's drunk a bit of vampire blood is feeling a bit awkward, and it's so well done because it buys into those tropes. It's the reason why Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, the book, works so well, is it is so fixed in the genre tropes and the genre kind of beats that the parts which are not real play with a weird sort of level of misfocus, and it's very, very effective. The way that they do the vampire effects, the way that they do the storytelling, the way they do the breaking the fourth wall, first person projection thing, found footage aspect is so well done. I love all the awkward pan zooms and the weird intercutting, and the music in this is really well done. The acting throughout is pretty well done. I don't know any of the actors from this. If I did, I didn't recognise them. I didn't recognise any of the names off IMDb. I think the music is really well done. I think the direction is really well done. It's a nice kind of offbeat for people who are really bored and oversaturated with vampire stuff. It's kind of a weird offbeat version of that sort of parody. It's not a direct parody of vampire mythology. I'd say it's more a parody of documentaries than it is about vampires, but it's a good combo of both if you're into that. I found it very witty, as I said, very entertaining. The way they deal with supernatural in such a down-to-earth, such a serious kind of off-kilter way is brilliant. The visual effects, the makeup effects, the action sequences are all so subtly and so just perfectly handled that it's got a really good rhythm to it, it's got a really good beat to it. It's not for everyone, as I said. I didn't find it hilarious. as I know some people have. I found it entertaining, relaxing and enjoyable, and that's what I was aiming for. It is on English Netflix. I don't know whether or not it's on Netflix where you are, but if you want an enjoyable way to spend an hour and a half without really using your brain too much, but kind of enjoying the tropes and the silliness, go for it. The police scene is probably the best thing in the entire film. Also the werewolves. The werewolves are brilliant. They're so very boring and amazing. Yeah. They just seem so genuine in a really ungenuine way. Thank you for watching. Feel free to comment if you've seen this movie, if you haven't seen this movie or those sort of things. And I will see you guys all tomorrow for a video of some kind. Thank you for watching. Blah 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 blah. And yeah, see you guys all tomorrow. Bye guys.